Hi, I'm Mikkel Weber, founder and auteur of House of Peregrine. Expat, immigrant, pioneer, none of these were a fit, but Peregrine describes what we are all about perfectly. Those that craft their life story with intention. I've spent the last 6 years in awe of the life-changing connections and stories I have experienced while living abroad, and believe it is time for this adventure to be recognized, celebrated, and elevated to the life stage that it is. Through these interviews, I hope to connect those living internationally more deeply to both the place they are living and with themselves and those around them. We cover everything from international finances and meaning-making to global parenting and relationships to make your time abroad more intentional, edifying, and full of beauty. Find us at houseofperegrine.com, where you can find more ways to connect with the ethos of Peregrine. I hope you enjoy today's guest. Let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the House of Peregrine podcast. Today, I'm excited to be joined by Yann Ghisalberti, who is a IT specialist-turned-ADHD coach for adults and adolescents. Yann, I want to get right into it with you because our previous conversations and the work you're doing is really, really important, and also the way you're going about it, I really enjoy, and I want people to get to know you and your work. So go ahead and if you just tell us briefly where you came from, and then we can just start talking about something we both love nerding out about, I think.
Yeah. So thanks. First of all, thank you for inviting me, Mikkel. So I will start by introduce myself. So my name is Yann. I'm an ADHD coach based in Amsterdam, and I'm currently living my dream. I'm French. I think you can hear that with my accent. And I love adventure. So that's the main reason why I'm an expat. I'm really fulfilling a second dream is the adventure and the expatriation. So I'm from the east of France, from Alsace. My parents were born there, are still there, never really moved, went on holiday really close by, and are not very adventurous. Me, it's not my style. So after graduating as an engineer, I decided to move to Paris and work there. I work in IT in the corporate world, and I met my wife in Paris at work. So after 5 years in Paris, we decided to move to the south of France because the quality of life is much better than Paris. It's really nice as a single person, great, but as a family, Paris is not very great. So we moved to south of France, and our son was born there. After 5 years in the sun, we got a bit bored and not a lot of opportunities, and we wanted to take a bigger step. So my wife found a job in Amsterdam, in the Netherlands, and we moved the entire family because it was the really perfect opportunity to give an international dimension to our kids. So we moved to Amsterdam 9 years ago over the Christmas period. After 1 week here, kids went to school, Dutch school, and while we were working, both my wife and me, full time. And none of us took a break. So you can imagine it was quite difficult. After 9 months, a nice anecdote. My son was once asked us when we would go back to France because this time holidays were a bit long. And then we realized because our kids, so our sons were 5 and 11 at this time. The youngest one was a bit lost and thought it was just for a short period. And the transition was very difficult for him, especially. We felt quite, there was kind of guilt and stress. But yeah, we were really so busy that we didn't have time to look back, and we made it work. After 9 months, we had to look for another house because we got problems with the landlord. So we bought a house that needed full renovation. So that really didn't add a lot. It didn't make it easy, but at the end we have a really nice house that is as we want. Especially I'm kind of multi-tool. So I did a lot of stuff like painting, electricity, floor. So that was tough with a full-time job. So my wife was still
Yeah.
having a full-time job.
If I can interrupt, so you've done a lot of hard things at once.
Yeah.
So you've moved countries with young children, you've remodeled a house, you're both working full time. Any one of those things is actually a huge stressor, and you've added now 4.
Yeah. No, that's
Okay,
true.
why not? Let's just do it. I mean, that's the attitude of a lot of international people. I think is like, I mean, everything's hard, so let's get the life we want. And so
Yes.
then, yeah,
I
so
was,
then
we were pushing ourselves to the limit. So at the end, things went, we were, as you can imagine, it was quite very difficult, stressful, intense, but we didn't give up because we learned during our childhood to push ourselves and to be resilient. So I'm going to explain later on why. Because after some time in the Netherlands, I got diagnosed with ADHD. But let me first also explain that a bit how I managed to get this diagnosis. So I left the corporate world, and I joined Doctor Without Borders because I really wanted to have a meaningful job, not a meaningful, a fulfilling job. And this experience was really, really nice. Especially I met a really amazing psychologist there that helped me a lot and provided me amazing guidance. At one point, he recommended me to get an assessment on ADHD. And to be honest, when the diagnosis came, I was not really surprised. I suspected it for many years, but I always avoided to face the reality. Facing the reality was a bit too hard, I think. I lacked understanding of ADHD. I was also unconsciously believing that ADHD cannot be treated or cannot be fixed. So I preferred to be in denial, and I never really looked into it. But moving abroad, complex work, tough situation, kids, everything made it so difficult that I needed to get help. As you can
and
imagine.
this is a common experience though. Later stage diagnosis is pretty common worldwide,
Exactly.
but especially if you've been raised with this resilience and you just think everything's hard, if you stay in your same country and you kind of have that kind of infrastructure, you can almost kind of make it. Is that right? Like you were not feeling the effects of this in your home country as much, maybe, because the stressors were not adding on,
So
and you
first
were
of
able to
all,
cope.
my home country is France, and in France, ADHD is not really recognized for adults. It's changing, but a few years ago, many psychiatrists mentioned that ADHD disappear when you get adult. And there are still a lot of psychiatrists that believe this. The young generation, no, not anymore, but the old generation still. So first of all, it was really, I wouldn't have been diagnosed in France. So that's for sure. Secondly, my parents saw that there was something going on when I was a kid. So they asked my family GP, and the GP said, yeah, I'm full of life. That's much better than a kid completely zombie. So just do sport. So I did 4 times sport per week, or 5 even, which helped to cope and compensate. And then I learned coping mechanisms. But also in terms of mentality, the generation of my parents were not asking for help, were not going to see psychologists. It was really kind of for many reasons. One, it's kids are after the so you don't complain, you just go on. Two, it's shame on the family. And three, psychologists or psychiatrists are just for crazy people, psychopaths, and people that need to be locked in a room in a prison, or hospital.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot
yeah,
of that's a lot of stigma. That's a lot. No
lot of
wonder you had.
stigma.
Yeah. And I think it's pretty worldwide. I mean, I think even till semi recently around the world, ADHD, ADD were only recognized as childhood disorders. And so this is relatively new. So it makes sense. And it also makes sense why we're seeing an uptick maybe in diagnoses. And then I have read studies that show that in the international population, there's actually a higher incidence of people who are neurologically diverse in some way. I can link them below. You don't have to comment on it. But I do find it very interesting because I think it's pretty common, your experience, and you can comment on this. Do you see this a lot in your clients where they really do, they have a lot of capacity and a lot of, they don't see the downsides of some things. So they overcommit or they take on challenges that maybe other people might shy away from. Do I have that right? Do you see that in your clients?
On my clients, typical ADHDers, especially expats, manage to cope, manage to find solutions to deal with stressful situation, because definitely moving abroad is very stressful. So and they do it by really pushing themselves hard, really amazing resilience, able to do impossible things. And definitely a lot of employers in the Netherlands, or a lot of employers in high tech, or look for profiles like this, that performance, are pushing themselves hard, are really overachievers, you know. So yeah, I
Tell
see
me
it a
about
lot.
that, because we spoke about this briefly before we started recording. So I want you just to go over this profile of using fear or stress as a motivator, like
Yeah.
for an ADHD brain or body. Tell me about how that works. I would love to hear your
I'm going to
explanation.
use my own experience. When I was a teenager, I learned that unconsciously, that fear and anxiety, or fear of failure, fear of police, fear of a lot of things, was helping me to control myself, to study, to push hard, to get results. And fear, it's proven that fear generates chemicals in the brain that are basically pushing yourself and helping you to focus and think straight. So I unconsciously found out
So it
this.
helps to focus you, basically,
Yeah,
right? Like it basically acts as a mechanism to focus your
focus and control
in
impulsivity,
control. Yeah.
because impulsivity is really a lot of ADHD. A lot of people are really looking at the attention part, at the focus, at learning disability, for concentration and all that stuff. But impulsivity is really one of the other big stuff on ADHD, and fear can help to basically get the second of delay in order to control your impulses, which is lacking in generally when having ADHD. This second is lacking, and that's why we say things we shouldn't. We jump and do things that are dangerous, because this second of delay, that where we can use the knowledge and the experience that we have to decide if doing this action or saying this is a good idea, we are lacking it. So, and that's why also stimulants are helping a lot. Stimulants, medication like Ritalin, so methylphenidate or dexamphetamine, these stimulants for people, when it works, they help really to give this delay, and give them the ability to access their knowledge, because the ADHD is not about not knowing. The problem is about not being able to access the knowledge at the right moment when taking an important decision. And that's a really big importance on the impulsivity. So coming back to the fear and my own experience. So by experience, by this coping mechanism when I was a teenager, and young adult, I managed to succeed in life. Of course, was tough, but I managed to succeed. But then I paid the price of it, because when you start to use more and more a coping mechanism, and you overuse it, the coping mechanism become a problem. It's not a solution anymore, but becomes a problem. So this is when anxiety comes in, and anxiety and chronic anxiety. And that's a reason why many people with ADHD, especially adults, also have, there is 50% of adults in terms of statistics that have also anxiety disorders. So that's the main reason, because fear is working, but at the end it's not good for you. So there are other approach and other solutions than using fear. And then you can
And
also
that's probably when you see people, right? Like you specialize in international expats and children and adolescents to help them come up with different coping. Do I have that right? Because I can imagine it would be great if people came to you proactively, but I can imagine there's a lot of people coming to you that need new ways. These tools are no longer working. They've maxed out, or their bodies can't handle it, or their
when coping
relationships.
doesn't serve you anymore, it's time to change them and to look for other solutions, because coping mechanisms that create more problems than solutions is just useless, and it's dangerous. So and that's one of the really big principles in psychology: stop doing what doesn't work. No.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot, and myself as well, blaming myself, feeling guilty about a situation, about doing again and again the same mistake. This is a human response to a failure or to situations like this, using guilt to try to remember the experience. But when you use guilt so much, and at the end, you still do the same mistake, and then you are automatically, unconsciously just increasing the guilt, but it doesn't change the result because you still do the same mistake, because the problem is not, it's more related to the brain, how it works, ADHD, and how the brain process the information of the situation. So you just increase guilt, you just feel bad about yourself. So it really impacts your self-esteem. So why should we continue to use or to feel guilty? Because it doesn't serve, it doesn't help. So
It got you through to this point, but now it's no longer working. And it's actually maybe hurting you and leading to burnout or
exactly,
worse, or deterioration of relationships or health or and
exactly.
I would like to ask you really quickly. So this is something I'm thinking about a lot, is this fundamental difference. And I want to hear your thoughts about this. It's not like what I've heard, and it really resonates with me, and I want to hear your thoughts, is ADHD brains, autistic brains, they're not regular brains and bodies with a deficiency. They're actually built and wired differently. Does that resonate? So in a
Yeah.
way, when you're using these mechanisms, it's would you consider it masking, or it's trying to fit your body and your brain into, it's translating? Is that?
Yeah, so then I can really also, this resonates a lot, and mixed with what you mentioned about some studies, there is really a link between the environment and the ADHD brain. So if you take someone with ADHD that is really passionate about photography, and loves to be in the nature, take pictures there, he's going to function very well, and he's going to be really amazing in his job by being really patient. Because a lot of people think, yeah, people with ADHD cannot be patient, but they can when they really love what they do. Being patient, really being super sensible to details and to noise, to really take the right picture in the nature, and everything goes very well, and the person is completely functioning.
They're in flow. They're like, and and what I've heard also, which really resonated, is that ADHD or ADD, that spectrum, is not a lack of attention. It's actually, you have too much attention. It's just spread
Exactly.
out. It's like the aperture on the camera is letting in too much light.
It's the problematic about the stimulation. So it's really, there have been studies around the cortical, the eye, and the capacity to get, the fact that the eye gets too much information, or behind the eye there is the part that I forgot the name, of course, the part behind the eye that is basically transforming the visual information into signal for the brain, that is over functioning. So some studies are saying that this could be a reason why too much information arrives to the brain, and the brain is just not able to manage all this information.
Or at least it's not able to manage it in a way that helps you fit in a school work environment the same way.
Yeah,
And so
because to take my example before in the nature, it's really like there is not so much stimulation. It's totally different because when this person or this person comes back to Europe to show his pictures and arrive at the airport with a lot of people, a lot of noise, a lot of smell, a lot of stress, and then to the subway where it's totally crowded, person start to be in total stress. And that's really, but being in the middle of wild and dangerous animal was really not stressful, but being in the middle of a lot of people, a lot of noise, a lot of light, especially light also. I don't know if I've heard a lot on myself as well, complaints about the intense light in shops. It's
yep,
really,
shops.
they make it really, it's on purpose that there are a lot of light so that you really look at everything. And but for me, it's hate shopping for this kind of reason.
Yeah, smells. And so that it goes to this notion that I really want to further in the world, assuming that it's accurate, is that it's not necessarily that there's something deficient about this. It's a world that's built for people who are built a different way, and where it's actually an appropriate response. So if someone who this were built for were to walk into a place that the music was blaring, there's strong smells, and there's light that's flashing in their face, they would also react this way, but that's just not how their systems are built. And so it's actually what I would like to what my assumption about this is this is actually an appropriate response to the stimuli that's coming in. It's just not the same for everybody. The way the stimulus comes in is not the same for everybody.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I totally agree with this. We all have different reactions to this situation, and the environment is very, very much important. One of the first advice from a psychologist helping me with ADHD was to change environment and adjust the environment so that I could fit in or feel more aligned with the situation.
Yeah.
The
Just
problem is
not be
that,
stabbed in the face all the time. Like just not overwhelmed. Your nervous system calm.
yeah. So and
What was
that,
that?
yeah, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. So I want to know how that led. So continue your story, if you would, about that process, because you were in IT, you were kind of
Yeah. So
like in this environment where you were also feeling the people
that's
you were managing.
and that's a really good example on environment. So after this experience at Doctor with Borders as an international project manager, I moved to become a freelance in IT because I really tried to adjust the environment. And I saw that by doing freelance job, like more clients, more projects, constant change, that would really help me to cope with the stressful situation and also take distance from the political and the corporate issues, you know. So, but after
Dimension.
some
It's a
time,
dimension. Let's call it a dimension. Yeah. So it took that dimension away from your environment, which was helpful.
so but at the end, it was really. I found out after almost 20 years, that the problem was basically not the environment. It was more the job itself. I was done with it and not really enjoying it anymore. There was things that I was enjoying. So first, the IT work or IT job is very rewarding in terms of financially. You know, it's very comfortable financially. It was really secured and helped me on the making sure that my family could have enough money, that we can do everything we want, that we can build a house. That's really good. And that's really helped me a lot, especially as I mentioned, I used for many years anxiety, fear, then I got anxiety and working on my anxiety and recovering from chronic anxiety, I found out that, yeah, I don't have the anxiety anymore of not being able to to be to financially
Provide
uh,
for your family. Yeah.
yeah. So so then I realized that money was not really important to me. Was a stress factor, was generating anxiety, but was really not a driver. So I looked at my drivers and I looked at what really generated satisfaction in my IT missions, jobs or whatsoever. And as an IT manager, project manager, I was really getting satisfied by helping my team. I saw so many people struggling with high stress that I tried to support them as much as I could. So I helped people to avoid burnout because I was seeing signs of it, and I was helping them to get aware that they were going too far.
And was
So,
this after or before your own diagnosis?
so no, that was, yeah, exactly. That was after my own diagnosis.
So you were helping yourself and then helping others as you were going with your new awareness, which is really beautiful. That's really
No,
cool.
it's
Thanks for.
definitely. So after our Doctor Without Borders, I got the diagnosis of ADHD. And this is where basically I learned a lot about ADHD, a lot about myself. I did CRT, how they call in Dutch, cognitive behavior therapy to help on the ADHD. And then I continued this growth journey with therapy. But after some point, I got kind of stuck in the therapy process. And by starting coaching, it really helped me to grow.
And why do you think that is? I think that this is a really important point, and a lot of people do get stuck here because especially if you are a mixed profile. I know you shared, I hope it's okay I share. You have now discovered you have the profile of, I always say it wrong, ADHD and autism. Is that
So
right?
yeah, so exactly. So after getting diagnosed with ADHD, I also got diagnosed with ASD, so autism.
So yeah, which is,
So
I love that you're bringing this up. Yeah.
now I'm basically I have AuDHD. So it's not an official term, especially the DSM-5, so the Bible of psychologists, is not recognizing this combination as a diagnosis. So it's basically they're really looking at ADHD and ASD very separately. Therapy and treatments are really separate. But many people, and especially now, I see a lot about it. You can see on Instagram, you can see on Facebook or on LinkedIn a lot about ADHD. So it's autism and ADHD, which is really the combination. And I have a feeling that ADHD is it's it's kind of I don't know if it's exists. It's more and more people have a combined version. It's because I'm also surrounded by people with this kind of profile. Because pure ADHD, it's kind of tough to really succeed or to really be able to move abroad, to be super performant. But the mix of it make it easier because the autism on one side is kind of the need of structure, the rigidity, and usually also what they call the Asperger. High potential, smart, basically combined with ADHD, which is more like impulsive and let's move abroad, let's do crazy stuff.
Yeah,
It's
let's go
really
skydiving.
kind of my brain is in constant battle. So my ADHD is like let's go tomorrow to a party, and my autism is like I'm recovering from the flu and might get more sick if I really party tomorrow. So I should better not do that. Right now, I'm really fighting. They are fighting together to really take the right decision. So it really helps. It helps to, so one compensate the other and the other compensate the other. But sometimes it's really difficult because then they fight, and at the end, nobody is right and there is no decision taken. So ADHD can be a really tough situation. If you're interested, I can also give some example of common signs of ADHD. I'm not sure that's
Yeah, let's
interesting.
put that in the link. Let's put that if you have it. But I think it's worth noting that everyone experiences this differently and that diagnoses only exist so that people can help. Like the diagnoses are changing constantly. Maybe not in the DSM, but the DSM does change frequently because it's a very so far poorly understood way of a body and a brain working. It's understood more and more, but now I think people who are actually experiencing life this way, are actually becoming more increasingly demanding that they be involved in the actual testing and diagnosing and all this stuff, because it really is hard to, if you are in a neurotypical body, to make studies that are accurate for the experience. And so I think it's worth noting that this is what you're describing is something that has come from the community of people saying, wait, I don't fit either of these man-made diagnoses. I'm a combination. And then more people were like, me too. And so that's how this is a little bit a way of like people who live their life this way and were born this way are coming to the forefront and saying, hey, this is what I'm experiencing, which I think is really beautiful. And so what I wanted to ask you is, therapy is a really, really maybe important step, but a lot of people get stuck in this where they're like, maybe therapy is helping in some ways, but then they need coaching on the other part too. Tell me how that worked together for you and how maybe you see it, because they are kind of complementary sometimes, especially if you're diagnosed late. I mean, you know what I'm saying? If you're not a child, and even if you are a child, you need help understanding how not only your past and how your body and brain work and how that's affected you. And like you said, caused anxiety or these side effects or comorbidities that go together. But then how do you move forward in this? Because there's mourning, maybe there's excitement, maybe there's looking back at your life and going, oh, that makes so much more sense. I can imagine. But then you need to still live your life. You're still an adult. You're still paying bills. You still have a job. In your case, it led you to retool and reinvent how you spend your time working. So tell us, maybe guide us through that, how it can work, or how it did work for you and how you're seeing it work. Because I think it's an important piece of the puzzle for people to understand. This is a big deal, to understand how you work.
Exactly.
Can be exciting, but also it's
really
a lot
challenging to get the right help, and because, as you said, everybody is different. Everybody experience situations differently, and everybody experience ADHD or ASD differently, and especially with a blended mix, it's really tough. Because let me take an example. After getting my ADHD diagnosis and treatment, cognitive behavior therapy, I got my ASD diagnosis, and then I started autism kind of therapy, in a really specialized center for autism. When I arrived there at the intake, I mentioned I also have ADHD, and they were like, "Oh, that's amazing. That's very interesting, because we don't really have a lot of experience with this, and basically we learn from you." So I was a bit surprised, let's say.
Were you a bit scared? Were you scared too? A little bit scared?
Scared and not very comfortable with the situation, because I was really hoping to get support and progress with, now that I knew that I had combined diagnosis, that I could get help. So, but they really then focused a lot on the autism, where before I focused on the ADHD. And at the end, it didn't work out so much. And then I looked for someone that had the both experience. This person helped me, and the first thing was like, he was clearly saying that there is not a lot of people able to really treat.
They're not trained in it.
They don't have the training to really address both, and even in terms of knowledge, it's very, very tough to be specialist on both approach, because there are really, sometimes there are common things, but they're also in contradiction.
Odds. Yeah, they're at odds sometimes.
But so in my case, this combined diagnosis was a reason why a typical therapy was not really working. But I have also discussed or heard from clients that even for single diagnosis on ADHD, they were not achieving, or they learned a lot, psychoeducation, they learned a lot about coping mechanism, cognitive behavior therapy to stop some destructive patterns and replaced by more healthy.
Yeah, they have a lot to share.
So,
Yeah.
but the problem afterwards, and especially with ADHD, is about being able to implement and to use the knowledge. As I said before, the impulsivity, high impulsivity is really a problem, because when I got the cognitive behavior therapy, 70% of it, I already knew it. I already learned by myself, and I already knew it. And the problem was not about knowing. The problem was that when I was facing a situation, I was unable to remember this knowledge and apply it. So this is where I really found the help and I managed to progress with coaching. Coaching really look more in the future, look more at how to implement strategies that really works for you, how you can change patterns, how you can basically really implement and access the knowledge and be aware that impulsivity can be controlled on a way. So it's also, helping
Harnessed.
on accepting the diagnostic, which also takes a lot of time, accepting the disability part. But we are talking a lot about disability and stuff, but there is also a lot of positive stuff with ADHD. And I hope we also can conclude with this, because I really think it's important to pinpoint all the positive stuff with ADHD. The only thing, as you mentioned before, in our current environment, society.
I want to mention one thing, Jan. I want to highlight one last thing, and then I really do want to because I truly believe what you're saying is true. There is something I'm picking up on that maybe isn't true, and I've studied a bit myself, is this idea of being ADHD, autism, and maybe even they call it 2E. So high intelligence with a difference in neurological. So again, I don't want to diagnose you, but I think a lot of people who have made it very far, like you said, you already knew a lot of these things. You had to learn it on your own. This happens a lot with, like, if you have high, and again, this is not a bragging thing. So if you're a 2E, it's like you have a high IQ and a difference, a neurological difference. And so I don't know if what I'm sensing is maybe that's
And
how you got through.
I even read some people that believe, or some studies that are trying to look at the link between high IQ and ADHD, and they believe that the ADHD would be the cause of the high IQ, because of the ADHD there is a need to cope and a need to adapt and a need to
Constantly.
find
Yeah.
strategies constantly to fit in the society, and starting from really young age when you arrive at school or in kindergarten. So you really have to learn, have to find solutions. And there is a theory saying that it's really pushing the development of the brain in order to be more develop get more intelligent in order to be able to cope with ADHD. So there are stuff, no real conclusion, I think, around it, but a lot of theory, which would make sense.
Yeah. I like to think of it as being bilingual. It's almost like you're bilingual in your nervous system, where you're like, I know this is what people need me to do. I don't do this naturally, but I can translate for them.
And especially in the population that they get diagnosed adult, I've seen that a lot. Or in people that are not diagnosed and suspect ADHD, but are able to live or to survive. And they also learned from the young age that surviving is normal thing.
Operating. Yeah, that's their normal life, just
Which is at
surviving.
the end, if you talk with neurotypical people, they just live their life. There are stressful situations or sometimes something, but it's not, they are
Constant.
not in constant survival mode. Because if I take again my experience of moving to Netherlands, two kids, two young kids, two jobs, ADHD, and especially also, I didn't mention it before, but my wife also, after I got diagnosed with ADHD, she, when she filled in the questionnaire for me, she was like, that's also okay. So she recognized it on herself. So at the end, she also got diagnosed with ADHD and with ASD. This was also the reason why I got diagnosed with ASD. So we are both ADHD. So both of us with ADHD moving abroad, we were like in a constant tornado, constantly in crazy situation and constant stress. So we were.
And you thought it was normal. You think that's just life.
For us was normal and being in survival mode all the time. And it makes me laugh because yesterday I watched, while I was thinking about this interview, I watched my son playing Minecraft and then he started his game and it was survival mode. I was like, yeah, that's it. I'm in constant survival mode. I have been. And since the diagnosis, since therapy, coaching, and all the work I have done since then, I'm shifting from survival mode to just living. It's not all the time. I'm still recovering from the survival mode, and I'm still my instinct and my basically the reflex is to go back to survival mode as soon as something goes wrong. But I'm able to just live, and that was impossible in the past. And I just had no clue. So yeah, so I think a lot of people.
And is that what you would describe what you're doing with your clients, is to bring them into this privilege of just living?
Yeah, it's about awareness, helping them and guiding them to just basically be aware, get aware of their situation, of this pattern, of how they cope with the situation, and to be proud of it, because
yes,
it's a lot of people are like just blaming or feeling guilty that they didn't succeed or whatsoever. But with ADHD or autism or both, achieving so much is just like they should be proud of it. Of course, it comes with a price, and that's where it's never too late. Because I also heard people like really, adult, over 60, like now it's too late for me to do anything about it. And I have experience. I talked with a psychiatrist on this, and he mentioned that he has seen some people like 65 plus when they got retired. They started stimulants that it worked for them, and they were like, wow.
Yeah.
And then they
able to
also start to psychoeducation, learn about ADHD, and they were like, how did I do? How I am still alive?
Yeah. They suddenly give themselves credit for what they've been doing their whole lives.
Also, yeah.
And medication or not, like that awareness will get you a long way of understanding your life story better.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So coming back to my experience and my situation. So after 20 years in IT, the only positive thing was to being able to help people. I decided to leave this job behind and become an ADHD coach, because with the knowledge I have especially with my own ADHD, the passion I have to help people.
This is a superpower.
An ADHD coach was obvious, and I'm really fulfilling a dream now. And I'm finally, a lot of friends, a lot of people around me are saying that are really seeing a big difference. And since, they mentioned as soon as I stopped working in IT and I started this journey, they are really like, they see a difference in me, and they're very, very positive about it. So very happy and very, happy that I have the chance to be diagnosed, and the experience I had to then move to this domain and this work, because I really love it. And to pursue this passion, I've started a really big and indefinite training program, because it's very essential to become a successful coach to have continuous training. I don't think, and that's also very interesting because I'm very curious and I'm a person that can get bored quickly. And
you're in a field that changes constantly, so that works great.
You got it.
Yeah. And Yann, you and I talked earlier about this, and I really want to make sure people hear it. So your clients often come to you with a problem or a tip of the iceberg is how you described it to me, which I really
Yeah,
loved.
exactly.
So tell me about that process when your clients come to you, because it's often maybe their spouse or they come with a problem. So start there. They come with a problem and then tell us about your process, because I think it's really unique and also powerful.
So basically, initially, when people contact me, we have a first intake. During the intake, as you mentioned, they come with a problem. If not, they wouldn't come. This problem is really the top of the iceberg, you know. And coaching is about guiding the coachee, so the client, to dig deeper and look at what is behind the hidden part of the iceberg, to uncover underlying issues or patterns or the reasons or the real problem behind, and explore the emotional connections with it, because usually a lot of the problems are related to emotions. And when they are able to go and understand better the problem, it's really empowers them to really look at it with different eyes and find truly effective solutions. So it's really common that the first request, I call it request for help, so that is expressed by a client after the intake sometimes, or after the first session, it completely changed. It's linked, but it's totally different. So that's very much how coaching is addressing and how coaching is working. It's really a great tool to be able to understand yourself, to know yourself, to better understand and explore the challenges or the problems more deeply.
Yeah. And would you say that you act, so I think for me, this is what I would imagine. If you have this new awareness, or maybe you've known officially being told that your brain and your body works a different way than you thought, and then you're also still an adult, or you're even an adolescent in middle school or something, and you still have to operate at that same level, but you're learning how to operate a new kind of machine. So that's one. I don't like referring to bodies as machines, but you know what I'm saying? Like, your manual just changed with how you operate in the world. So that's one step. But then every emotion and every action you have usually is pretty logical, right? Like, people don't really act illogically that different that often. But when you understand what's underneath it, that's when you can actually change the things that are maybe bothering you. But if you're just trying to change the action, it will never be lasting, or it'll be harder or more.
Exactly, but change them or accept them, because
Yeah,
also
that's really good. Yeah.
a lot of teenagers or adults being diagnosed recently, they just have difficulties to accept that there are things that they are not good at, because they have on some other things, or for things they love, they are really able to do amazing stuff. They're really super smart and super capable to do really complex stuff when there is dopamine. So when basically there is interest, when they love it, or it's really easy. But things that they're really like don't have interest, or also on some executive functioning, I can go explain that further after. So some processing of stuff or thoughts, memory or things, they are just not able to. And they really like, when they look at themselves, they see like, yeah, I'm super capable of this complex stuff, but this easy thing, I cannot make it. I'm really stupid. And that's how they to have some
Self-identify. It's like almost like you're
identify on something that is wrong, and that has already an impact on them in self-esteem, and is going to have a bigger impact on the long term. So by already accepting that there are things that they really cannot do, or it's really tough, and by looking for how they could do it, if you take me as an example, I have the syndrome of the white sheet. If I need to write something, and starting is very difficult because there is a white sheet, I have a lot of ideas. The ideas and the content is not the problem. It's just starting. Where do I start? And now that there is AI, I just dump my ideas in AI. It's giving me some start. I put it in the sheet, and then I'm
There you
started.
go.
Then
And
I'm
that's
using
part of this
almost
acceptance.
everything, and I'm
Yeah.
not really using AI anymore. At the end, perhaps for grammar, because I'm not a English native, but it's really helping a lot. And before I was like beating myself, saying, no, I'm smart, I'm educated, I should be able to do it on my own. I'm not going to use AI because this is for lazy people. No, no, it's just tools that are available that helps you. So by accepting this, it's also because sometimes problems are really, the solutions can be really different. And by exploring the different solutions with the coachee, I usually in brainstorming sessions, we really, the coachee comes with a lot of ideas. I bring some ideas just to add on top of it. And the last idea I ask the coachee to bring is like, give me a stupid or a crazy idea. And it's funny because this crazy idea can become really the solution, but up front they would be like, no, that's too crazy. It's not something, it's a good idea. People will judge me, blah, blah, blah. No, if it works for you, whatever idea, whatever solution is good.
Yep. And you're never going to be, it's never going to seem normal because you are not.
No,
But
and what is
yeah,
normal, you know? Being normal is a concept I already thought when I was a teenager and a young adult. I was fighting it, saying that, you know, being normal is just being part of the majority of people. But if everyone would have ADHD, the people without ADHD would not be normal. Normal or not, it's a concept of perception.
yes, absolutely. I could talk to you about this for hours, literally. I want to go over one more thing about, I think, what your approach. I think what's sometimes, it's not for everybody, but people who have neurological differences often feel things differently and they can feel into things differently. And I think that when we were talking before, I felt that in one of your superpowers is to be able to empathize in a new way. And so you said with your clients, you help them see where they're maybe lying to themselves, which is a really strong word, but it's a really loving way of saying, there's a block and maybe I can help you find it. And that will unlock a bunch of magic. And so I think that's partially part of your magic as well.
Yeah, the coaching is the magic of coaching is about asking questions, you know. So as a coach, I'm asking a lot of questions so that the client can reflect and look at hidden spots. Because
Hidden spots.
usually I developed skills and I developed really a good approach on how to identify these hidden spots. And this is usually where the problem is. And this is where I'm going to ask a lot of questions. And sometimes coachee like doesn't feel good about it and feel a bit disturbed by this approach. But at the end of the session, they're very happy that they learn at looking at these hidden
Yeah.
things, you know, because this
These are
is,
usually really sensitive bits that are there for a reason.
yeah,
And now it's holding them back. But they were through childhood, through moving through the world differently, or just hiding certain things. They needed to do that, but now they need to come out. And I've heard it said, and I've had it in my own life. That's actually where a lot of your gifts can sometimes lie, is looking at those blocks, having someone help you identify them and lovingly either just notice them and accept them or remove them.
yeah,
That's a really powerful, powerful thing to do. And also a very sensitive or vulnerable thing to do. So that it's both. And that's actually really beautiful. But I think in my experience
yeah.
talking to you, I think that this is something we didn't get to cover enough of, but I sense is your superpower.
Yeah, and on another end, also, as you mentioned, a lot of people experience shame, as you say, not feeling okay to request help because they believe, not they believe, but they manage to go on, especially in adults, to succeed in life or to cope or to survive without help until now. And asking help, you know, a lot of people and even myself at the long time before all this journey, I was like, yeah, I'm very good at analyzing. I'm super analytical. I'm very creative in solutions, in ideas. So I should be able to find the problem myself and find a solution myself. Why do I need help? And this is where really people should stop having this belief that they can achieve everything by themselves. And it's funny because I have discussion with people around that during networking events or chit chats, and they're really like into, yeah, I don't need help because I can manage and stuff. And I'm like, and then I'm using this example. I'm saying, okay, what do you do as work? And usually they are working in a complex environment with a lot of people. And I'm saying, okay, so the result of the work is collaboration between a lot of people. You couldn't do everything by yourself, right? No. So you need others to be able to accomplish complex stuff that perhaps you could do on your own, but that would take you ages. It would be very difficult. But by having other people and getting help from other people, it's really much easier, and you achieve really a lot of stuff by collaboration and working in group. And they're like, yeah, sure. It's suddenly like this. We're very collaborative, very stuff, and very oriented to teamwork. And I'm like, and that's about coaching. It's really a partnership, a collaboration to really help the person to go deep, to look deeper and understand and learn faster.
Yeah. It's a project. I call it the project of you, the project of you and uncovering your strengths and where you want to go in life. I think that's an excellent place to end, Yann. I have a feeling we'll be talking again. We will link to how people can contact you in the footnotes, in the show notes, but just say it out loud, how people can contact you for coaching or questions.
I have my own practice in Amsterdam. That's called Coach for ADHD.
And you coach people in French and English, is that right?
I coach people in French and English, teenagers, teens, and adults. A client can either come to my office or we can do it online. Even thinking about a walking coaching session for the summer, because I live near the polder and the Amstel. So I'm very flexible. What is important is that it works, and it's different for every person. So I'm really looking at what works for each person. Usually I start with face-to-face sessions and then transition to online meetings. And that's very helpful, especially with people, when people struggle with the punctuality with ADHD or the stress of being in person appointments. So they can contact me either via my website. So there is a booking system. Usually it's really better to start with an intake. There is a free intake of 30 minutes where we look at the problem and we learn to know each other and see if that works, because that's very important, that there is a really good connection between the coachee and the coach. It's very different than really with psychologists or therapy, because usually with RZ, with the Dutch mental health system, you don't have a lot of choice. You just take the person available. Here, really important to choose your coach that you feel good with. And also a very important thing, so they can contact me for sure, but if they find other coach, I'm very happy for them. Just they need to make sure that the coach is a member of coaching association, Dutch coaching association, because coach is not a regulated job. So basically, everyone can call themselves a coach. So be careful on choosing the right coach. And usually these coaches are basically a member of associations that the association is checking that the coach is has the right skills, competencies, and also strictly adhere to code of conduct, strict code of conduct. So that's very important. So on my website, they can book an intake, and I'm happy to discuss and look at the problem with them.
Thank you, Yann. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I feel like we could talk about this for hours. I could geek out on this. I will link everything in the show notes for people. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Okay, that's it for today. I hope you've enjoyed our show. For the latest insights on living internationally, join us at houseofperegrine.com to find out how you can connect with our community. Let's craft our life story with intention together.